Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we were talking before we started the show. Of course, this is our bold prediction show. So, of course, we were talking before the show about, hey, maybe this would be a nice quick show again, like it was last week. And maybe, we were talking about how we came up with the predictions this week, and you're talking about how easy it was. And I'm like, okay, so this is going to be one of these weeks where Tony's like, Ohio State will have at least 3 first downs. So, all right, I'm ready to fight. Let's go. Here we go.
and I'm looking at my predictions right now, and I just realized, I only have, I've got 4 1-pointers, and I didn't write down my 5th one, and now I don't know what it was. So the show is already off to a fantastic start. Just like every single, the last 3 episodes, I've had to come up with one on the fly, and I may have to do that again. No, I swear I had something, but it's okay. It's not the first time I thought I did the complete job, and I had not. So I figure we should just get started. But first time we have to talk about last week. And
no, let's save time by not doing that.
No, it's valuable. We can spend some time on it. We may run out of time to talk about this week. But for the curious people out there who didn't keep track on your own, I won. Tom has now not won for 2 weeks straight. I won last week on the heels, the back of a tremendous prediction on my part. I got one right, which was more than what Tom got right. Here's where I was, Tom, and then you can go over what you did, and we can spend some time on that one. So I had Ohio State will rush for 175 and pass for 250 through 3 quarters. No, that did not happen. Ohio State will have 2 plays of at least 50 yards. I believe they only had 1 Jackson Smith and Jigba, and honestly, I didn't need to even go back and see if they had 2 because I'd already won by enough. Jeremy Ruckert will have a touchdown catch plus 4 other catches, equaling somehow 5. It doesn't matter. That didn't happen. Adrian Martinez will have a 3rd quarter turnover. The most disappointing aspect of this is that he did not. He had the 4th quarter turnover, which would have never been allowed in any bold prediction show anyway, so I didn't even try. Steel Chambers will be in the top 3 tacklers. He finished 3rd in tackles. That was the winner. My 2-pointer, Ronnie Hickman, will have an interception. That did not happen. My 3-pointer, a freshman, will be involved in a turnover, and I don't believe that happened either. So, but I got one right. Tom, how many did you get right?
Well, Tony, at one point on Saturday, I had my 3-point bold prediction, my extremely boldest prediction correct. Ohio State would finish plus 5 in sacks. They were, in fact, plus 5 in sacks. I was on my way to winning the week. And then CJ Stroud grounded the ball illegally, which then counts as a sack. And then, an intentional grounding penalty shows up as a sack on the stat sheet. So then we're back to plus 4. And then everyone lost their ever-loving minds on the last drive and decided, what we should do up 6 late in the game when literally all we have to do is run out the clock? Let's heave one downfield and get strip sacked. That was a choice. And then Ohio State was plus 3, and then I wasn't winning anymore. So that was a shame. My other ones last week were 227 yards rushing, 227 yards passing. I hope aren't too married to me picking that, because I'm never, ever, ever picking that ever again. Ever, probably. Ohio State forces 3 turnovers on Saturday for the first time in history. Nebraska was not an absolute turnover machine because the universe hates me. Ohio State's going to average 6.5 yards per carry. I didn't go back and look, but I watched the game, so I know they didn't. Nebraska was going to go for it 4 times or more on 4th downs on Saturday. Nebraska had plenty of opportunities to do that. Nebraska absolutely should do that. Scott Frost should be fired for complete negligence of duty, but he'll be back next year to kick field goals again with a kicker who's sub 50% on the year. Great decisions all around. Really, Tony, frankly, I don't view this as my failure. I view this as the failure of some people that get paid a lot more money than I do, who made worse decisions than I anticipated they would. Let's see, they give up 0 passing touchdowns. They only gave up 1, I believe, but it was a long one, and it was. And 3 players over 100 yards rushing and receiving, and one of them had to be Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jackson Smith and Jigba was He also did it again. So there's 2 for me. But yes, they did not get a third person to 100 yards. So I was deeply chagrined by that one as well. But yes, I feel like, you might say I'm letting down listeners. I might say some college football coaches let me down last weekend.
No, they definitely did. I would almost give you credit for the 2 for Jackson Smith and Jigba, but I do not want to set any precedent on that because it will come into play down the road. So let's get started with this week. And I guess I get to go first since I won. And my first one, Tom, Ohio State will intercept a pass intended for David Bell. Now, that's going to be, let's see, how many targets? Like 12 in this game, 12 to 15.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're going to have to intercept one of those passes, and they're going to throw 50 passes in this game. So
if they throw 50 passes, they're throwing more than 12 of them to David Bell.
I said 12 to 15.
Mm-hmm. If they throw 50 passes, they're throwing more than 15 of them to David Bell. But go on.
I'll even limit it to defensive backs.
Okay, so Haskell Garrett in coverage against David Bell. That's very charitable of you. Thank you. You're too kind and too bold, some might say.
This eliminates defensive ends dropping into coverage against David Bell as well.
Mm-hmm.
This eliminates Tommy Eichenberg getting matched up in the slot on David Bell and covering him down the field on a deep corner and intercepting the pass. I would not take credit for that.
Mm-hmm. I don't think the Ohio State coaching staff would either.
So an interception, and this is say a third of their pass attempts. Maybe I'm saying Ohio State is going to intercept somewhere one of these passes for David Bell. Tom, this is the first time this prediction has ever been attempted.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know how many passes intended for David Bell have been intercepted this year. I will grant you that, but go ahead and pick your nits.
I would like to know how close David Bell has to be to the ball.
I'll say this. How about if it shows up in the stat broadcast, if it shows up in the box score, pass intended for David Bell?
All right, that's fine. I'm going to allow this one, but I will, whenever the first time you're going to say, I'm not sure that's bold, you can just, okay, that's fine. We'll let mine first go. And
I mean, that's fine. First of all, Ohio State doesn't have hardly any interceptions this year. Certainly, they have not yet intercepted a pass intended for David Bell.
That is true. They have not yet, not once all season, and not last season either. I mean, that is extremely bold. In fact, yes. Okay, that's fine. That's your first one. Here's mine. Ohio State is giving him an average of 3.0 yards per carry. Purdue on Saturday is held to 2.0 yards per carry or less.
The thing is, that's about right in line with one of my bold predictions.
So you're saying it's not bold at all then?
No, I'm saying I'm kind of predicting myself into a corner, if you will. So 2.2 yards per carry or less. How many times has Purdue had that happen to them this year, Tom? I will look and I will tell you, and then we will go from there. It has happened 3 times this year where they've been under 2.2 yards a carry. And that's not including the 2.3 yards per carry against Notre Dame, the 2.26 yards per carry against Minnesota, the 2.6 yards per carry against Iowa, the 2.6 yards per carry against Oregon State, the 2.8 yards per carry against Nebraska. Now, is Ohio State better running, stopping the run against all of those teams? No. And Tom, if I give you this, I'm going to have to demand no blowback on my similar prediction about the Purdue running game.
Okay, now, all right. I'm going to need to hear your prediction before we come to an agreement on that.
Okay, it is. Let me see here. Purdue will have more pass attempts than rushing yards. You figure it's a 50-50 thing, and gets back to like the 2 yards per carry. Will they run the ball 25 times? They'll probably run it, upwards of 30 times, I would think. And so, yes, mine is a little bit more bold than yours, but we would expect that. But I'm not throwing shade. We're just trying to come to an agreement here.
I will. I think we can come to an agreement there. That's fine. We'll. I think there's a decent possibility both of those hit, which means that now neither of them will hit. Now that I've spoken those words out loud, but I think that is sufficiently bold because it is out of the ordinary. Just as holding a team under 2 yards a carry is somewhat out of the ordinary, having more pass attempts than rushing yards is also somewhat out of the ordinary. No, reflective of Purdue's offense this year, both of those, yes,
I
but
still
also
feel
somewhat
like
out of the ordinary.
Yours is more like Purdue is averaging 2.4 yards per carry this season. You're saying Ohio State will hold them to 0.4 yards worse than that, which they should. I mean, this is Purdue's running game. So I will, you know what? I said I didn't want to spend a lot of time, a lot of energy coming up with my own so that I had the energy to fight, but I don't want to fight right away.
Good.
And this feels to me like we know Purdue cannot run. 2 yards per carry is something that Wisconsin held them, Tom, to negative 0.5 yards per carry.
Tony, which team has a better defense this year, Wisconsin or Ohio State? Thanks. I'll hang up and listen.
There's no telling. There's no measurements for. I mean, there are no
advanced analytics that could say hypothetically that Wisconsin's defense is in the neighborhood of Georgia's, where Ohio State's defense is in the neighborhood of like, fine.
Tom, I'm tired of you citing PFF. PFF does not know all.
I'm citing SP Plus there, so that's all right. It's fine.
I'll let it go.
So you have your first two. I have my first one. All right, next one. None of Ohio State's opponents have thrown for more than 2 touchdowns this season. I looked that up and I was like, is that possibly right? But according to the official Ohio State stats, it is in fact correct. None of Ohio State's opponents have thrown for more than 2 touchdowns this season. Purdue throws for 3 or more touchdown passes on Saturday. First time anyone does that against Ohio State this season. Tony's rolling his eyes because obviously that's one that he had as well.
No, I mean, how many touchdown passes is Purdue throwing per game, Tom? Let me tell you how many touchdown passes they are throwing.
Tony, we just established the Ohio State defense is the greatest defense in the history of the world. So,
Tom, now, Purdue has thrown for 3 or more touchdowns twice this year.
How many times? Twice. Wow. How many times have they done it against Ohio State?
But one of those times they threw for 6. So technically, I think we've established that's actually 3 times this year.
Who was that against?
It was against Connecticut.
Yeah,
but also
UConn is the Ohio State of the East, as they say.
But also, Tom, they just did it against Michigan State, arguably the best team in the Big Ten. But I'm going to have to allow it. I mean, it's
because Ohio State hasn't had it happen to them all year, and UConn or Purdue has done it once against a team with a pulse this year. Yes, that is bold.
For 1 point.
Good. That is bold. Correct. Good job.
I don't like this attitude, Tom. I'm just trying to keep you honest, and you're turning this around, and you're getting very angry and very bitter. So 3 touchdown passes for Purdue against Ohio State. Tom, I got this next one. I think you're going to like it. I have to make sure I've already crossed. Okay, so I've already gotten the number 4 one off. That was the one I just gave you. So my third one. This is a brand new one for the show. Ohio State will have a play of at least 15 yards from scrimmage between the 11:30 and 14 marks of any quarter. So we don't even know if Ohio State is going to have the ball at this time of any of the quarters. So, Tom, I am saying, and I could not tell you how many times they have done this, so do not ask. I am saying in these 4 2.5-minute blocks of time, Ohio State will have at least one 15-yard play from scrimmage, not knowing if they are going to have the ball, not knowing if they're just going to be – the only time they have it is in the fourth quarter when they're up by 47 points. They're just taking knees.
You're going to be taking knees with 12 minutes left in the game? That's your theory here?
You're already picking this apart, Tom. I think for one, creativity. 2, not even knowing if Ohio State is going to have the ball at that point. And just – the uniqueness of it, and also 4, the creativity. Where are you, Tom? And go ahead and what do you have? What do you have?
I'd really like to know how many times Purdue has given up a play of 15 yards or more during those particular times this season. I suspect that you have come unprepared to the show yet again and do not have that information for me. So as a show of penance, I'm going to need that number to be bumped up to at least 18-yard play. 18 yards.
That's fine. I was going to go 25. No. I mean, we know there has to be a little bit of negotiation where you stand. So yeah, I mean, who knows?
It's right. This is one of these where it's like I have no context whatsoever to know. Like a lot of these, it's like we've made similar predictions in past games. You have to modify the numbers a little bit, but you kind of have an idea where it is. It's like this is like when when we were negotiating, you were like, Ohio State's going to have a punt that lands between these 3-yard lines. Like, sure, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that's fine. I have one that is much less avant-garde. Purdue's David Bell has only 3 games in his career with more than 138 yards receiving. He has at least 138 yards receiving on Saturday.
I absolutely hate this because
I went through his entire career. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I hate it because of the like, I need to figure out a way to counter this. Now, here's the thing though, Tom, like he's averaging 125 yards per game. So you're saying he's going to do 13 yards better than his average.
Here's what I'm saying. He has 3 games better than that in his career. You want to guess how many of them did not come against Iowa? One time against a team other than Iowa. Is he playing Iowa on Saturday? No.
Here's Tom. He has had 2 of those games in his last 4 games, though.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I get concerned with. Like he had a 134-yard game in the first game, which would not have, obviously that he would have fallen short this year.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a 240-yard game against Iowa, and then a 217-yard game against Michigan State. Those have been in the last 4 games. I don't want to hear about the 6 for 33 or the 9 for 74 in between those 2 games, Tom. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about the past.
Mm-hmm.
I will, gosh dang it. Like, I hear you. I see, I understand what you're saying. 138 yards.
He went an entire season without doing it last year.
Well, COVID, Tom. COVID.
They did play 6 games.
He had the 138 as a freshman, the 197 as a freshman. That does not come into play here at all. 144. That's 6 yards. It's almost nothing, but I'm going to have to ask for it.
Tony just guaranteed that David Bell will finish with exactly 142 yards of passing. Yes, that's fine. 144. That's fine. All right, 138, and he has to finish with at least 144 yards receiving. Okay, that's fine.
What
140? I was just reading my note. He has at least 144 yards on Saturday. Yes, got it.
Receiving.
Yes. Receiving. I will specify that.
Okay. All right. Here we go. I still have to come up with a 5th one. My 4th one, Tom. Something that has not happened at all this season. In fact, has never happened. Steel Chambers and Ronnie Hickman combined for at least 18 tackles in this game. They hit 17 last week. That was their season high. I'm saying 18 this week, knowing that Steel Chambers may not be getting as many tackles because they're not going to, the middle of the field may not be that busy. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to need Ronnie Hickman to tackle a bunch of these screens. Mm-hmm. So this probably should actually be a 2-pointer, but
how many tackles did Ronnie Hickman have like 2 weeks ago? I feel like the answer 14. Is like 14. Yes. Okay.
Right.
So
and Steel Chambers had, and I'm sorry, that was the game they had 17. Steel Chambers had 3 in that game.
And that was the game where Steel Chambers only played half the game?
No, that was the game he played a full game. It was 2 weeks ago when Ronnie Hickman had 14 tackles.
2 weeks ago was Penn State. How much of the game did Steel Chambers play that game?
Well, he was eligible to play the entire game until he was eliminated.
Mm-hmm. I will allow that with 20. 20 is the number.
No, 20 is too high, Tom. I'll go 19 and we can agree to 19. How about this? I was going to start getting into solos and assists, but that's just, I don't, that's just too much.
19, but 2 must be tackles for loss.
Well, here's the other thing about that, because I already have a tackle for loss thing going on.
At 19, but 2 must be tackles for loss, or an interception would negate one of the at least one of them. You can count an interception as one of them as well.
So Steel Chambers and Ronnie Hickman combined for 19 tackles, provided one of them, or two of them, 1.5, provided 1.5.
Sure. Our tackles for loss.
Our TFLs, or they can have
an interception can remove an interception can count for at least one of the tackles.
And it's just did we agree to 19? Okay, provided our TFLs, provided two or TFLs, and an interception counts as a tackle. Because why not?
This show is going to get a lot more complicated when we need to start bringing in attorneys every week, and we get every hour of the show is a billable hour.
We have established interceptions or tackles. This has been a long-standing rule,
setting the precedent of Ohio State v. Purdue 2021.
Okay, all right. So that was good. I may not be listening much to your next one because I'm trying to come up with one, but maybe I'll listen and I'll agree, and then I probably won't agree. Tom, what's your fourth one?
Only two opponents all season have thrown for more than 279 yards against Ohio State.
No, Tom, don't even say 279 yards. Go, continue. I'm sorry.
I was not going to do that. Purdue throws for 280 yards or more.
No. Tom, what is Purdue throwing for per game this season? How many times have they thrown for 280 yards in a game? Because
that's a good question. I will have to look.
It's a very good question because the answer is probably almost all of them. And I'm just looking
right now. They have not done it in two of their last three games.
They threw for 536 yards last week, though.
Yes, but two of their last three games, they wouldn't have done this.
So they are currently averaging
two of their last three of their last six. They have not done this. They either go way over this number or they don't hit it. They're in the 280-ish range or lower. They were 219 3 weeks ago, 233 2 weeks ago, or they have 536 against Michigan State or 375 against what we have already established is an extremely comparable defense in UConn. So yes.
And also 277 yards against Illinois and 291 against Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. They've gone over the 280 mark in 6 of their 9 games this season.
Nice. Would you like me to? I'll tell you what. Let's move it above the Notre Dame threshold, 291. So they must exceed 291 yards.
I'm trying to figure out what I can add on to this as a writer and maybe get passed through Congress. Okay, but I need infrastructure money for a bridge that I want to build in town. So
Aiden O'Connell must throw at least 2 of those passes with his left hand.
Here's something for you, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
At least of those, I'll let you have 280 yards. At least 15 of them have to come from somebody other than O'Connell. And we know they play different they can play several quarterbacks.
I mean, yes, you can do lots of things. Do I think they're going to? No, in fact, I do not.
Has played in almost every game this season and has thrown for over 15 yards 5 times this year. Mm-hmm. And has done it as recently as last month.
Last month. Oh boy. I'm pulling up his game log right now because
don't do it.
I did not anticipate needing to discuss Jack Plummer in any great detail on this show. Let's see. He did it in against Illinois in he did it against Wisconsin. Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and say no.
Okay. I thought you
respectfully. I will. How about 300 yards? I would make it 300. 300 yards.
Ohio State has given up 300 yards passing. What? 3 times this year? 4 times this year?
Only 2 teams have thrown for more than 279, so the number can't be more than 2.
Just Tulsa,
twice.
And then
I think it was Tulsa
Penn State?
and
was it Penn State?
Oregon. Let me look. It was. Tulsa had 428,
and then Penn State 361.
Penn State had 361. Yep, and then Maryland had 279.
So 300. Okay, we're good.
300 yards
through the air,
thrown, passing yards. Yes,
from Purdue.
from Purdue. 300. Purdue throws for 300 yards or more.
Okay, for Purdue. All right, no flea flickers, no funny stuff.
If it shows up on the stat sheet as a passing yard, it is in fact a passing yard.
Okay. My fifth one that I just have to come up with right now. Let me see if I.
You want me to do my fifth one?
Sure,
since I came prepared because I respect the listeners. 6 different Buckeyes appear in the sacks column on the stat sheet with at least half of a sack. Now they've done it. They've had 5 guys in each of the last 2 games, but they have not had 6 guys except for I think like the Akron game. And I mean, so it's like the games where you have to play a million people.
Yeah.
But I think they get a lot of pressure. I think they're bringing a variety of blitzes and a variety of pressures from different places. So I think they might get it there that way rather than like a million guys are playing.
Yeah. And thank you for mentioning that one. I just remembered what my fifth one was. So yes, 6 guys appear. That's good. I won't argue that. I mean, that's a good sign for the defense as a whole. And I don't want people to get upset with me saying, oh, you need at least 8 because now I'm being silly. So yeah, 6 guys appear with at least a half of a sack. I will agree to that within the first 3 quarters. No, I'm just kidding. I'm messing around. I really like to bicker and I like to bargain. But that one I'll just be like, okay, sold. I have no complaints with that one unless it happens, and then my complaint can only be with myself for giving in so easily. That falls in line with my fifth one, which I did not write down, but I had put in my brain. Tyreek Smith, at least 1.5 sacks in this game. He's had 1 sack in the last 3 games ever since he's returned. I'm saying he's going to better that. And also, Tom, if he gets called, if somebody gets called for holding, that counts. Although, you know what? It should be like, if my 3-pointer is if Tyreek Smith gets called, if somebody gets called for holding,
it's Tyreek Smith. Yes. We've never done a 5-pointer before, but
that would be worth it. So 1.5 sacks for Tyreek Smith.
Yeah. Anytime you pick an individual player to have more than 1 sack in a game, and frankly, anytime you pick an individual player to have a sack in a game, that is always, it never sounds bold. And then once you've tried it a couple times and it's like, why does this never happen?
Never.
You realize it's almost like picking a player to have an interception, which, I mean, so yes, I will allow that with no modifications and no arguments. That's always a good one.
We're seeing eye to eye on this one. I have a feeling we're gonna go 1 for 14 again this week.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. We agreed too much last week, and that was a sign that we were being far too bold to actually hit any of these.
It's so true.
Every week on Wednesday, I'm like, man, I'm going at least like 4 for 5 and maybe hitting a couple of the bonuses. And every week it's like, yeah, 2, great, good, almost made it.
Season high of 3. Wow. Should I go back to being
sure? Go ahead.
With my
sure.
My 2-pointer, Tom. The Ohio State defensive backs will combine for at least 1.5 tackles for loss. Now, I think they have 8 on the season, and I can tell you, I can actually get that stat for you right now. The problem with the CFBstats.com has Marvin Harrison as credited with 1 tackle for loss. He is number 18. I don't know why he would have that, but you've got the team leader in the secondary of tackles for loss is Lathan Ransom with 1.5. Marcus Williamson has 1.5, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6.5 on the season total for the secondary. So they're averaging, I don't know, 3/4 of a tackle for loss per game. I'm saying they're going to double that one and get 1.5 tackles for loss in this game against Purdue, a team that throws the ball downfield a lot. So it's hard to actually get those tackles for loss. We know defensive backs rarely get sacks for the Buckeyes. It had been, I think they went without one for a year. Lathan Ransom has one this year. Ronnie Hickman has one, but it's not something that we see a lot of. So 1.5 tackles for loss. Tom, have I talked enough?
I would have absolutely given you 1.5 on a 1-pointer. For a 2-pointer, I'm going to need 2. It's a good
I
one.
agree. That's fine. It's just to bump it up a notch, spice it up a little. I can go 1.75.
That's fine because they don't, for those of you playing at home, they don't credit quarter tackles for loss. So in order to hit 1.75, you'd actually need to hit 2. So,
okay.
All right. Now this is my next one. And I have a couple different variations on this depending on your thoughts, because this is sort of predicated on the idea that, are you expecting Ohio State to just blow out Purdue on Saturday? I mean, like the Rutgers blowout or the Indiana blowout or the Maryland blowout. Are you expecting that kind of game on Saturday?
Yes. No, I mean, it's definitely possible. I'm thinking, I don't know, like 35-17, something. I have no idea really.
That's about where I am. I think I haven't sent in my staff pick yet, but I'm right in that neighborhood, 38-21, something, 38-24, something like that. 5 different players score a touchdown for Ohio State, because the only times that has actually happened this year is games where they scored 50 plus and the backups got in. So it happened against Rutgers, it happened against Maryland, it happened against Indiana, but those are games where you either have a defensive touchdown or multiple games where you had defensive touchdowns, plus games where like Mitch Rossi catches a touchdown pass. So it is, outside of blowouts, it's a bit of an anomaly. I'm not expecting a blowout on Saturday, but I'm expecting them to really spread the ball. I think you might get 3 different guys with touchdown catches, 4 different guys with touchdown catches, and maybe a different guy or 2 with touchdown runs.
CJ
Stroud. CJ, yes. So they get to 38 points, but it's like 5 different guys have 1 touchdown. Your thoughts?
I wish I could hate this. I really like this one. Offense, defense only.
5 defensive touchdowns for Ohio State, all scored by different players. 17 points.
I will allow you to name 7 players.
Name 7 players.
I was just of the defense.
Yes, yeah.
Continuing. That's no. I'm not even going to be like, okay, but name one of the players, and then I would love it for you to get the 5 right, but not the one player, and it would be like, oh, you missed the Powerball, and that's too bad. Enjoy not getting those 2 points, but I will allow it. 5 different Buckeyes. How many times is that? You say it's only happened in blowouts this year?
I went back and looked through this year, and it's like Rutgers, Maryland, Indiana, and it's generally they have to score on defense, and it has to be a blowout where you're getting some of the younger guys in.
No, I think that fits in with the spirit of the game. So kudos to you.
Frankly, it's been a few weeks since they've scored 5 touchdowns in a game. So Ohio State scores 5 touchdowns in a game might be a 2-pointer pretty soon.
And I don't know that any of us has anybody hit a bonus one yet this year. Did you hit a 2-pointer? Nobody. Okay.
I don't think so. I hit the 3-pointer until I didn't last week, which was maybe the most exciting moment of the season for me.
Bounced out, rimmed out, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. My 3-pointer. A running back, an Ohio State running back, other than Travion Henderson, goes for over 100 yards.
Good. Love it. That's great. I mean, that's a great one because it's possible.
Mine did it twice this year, right?
Yeah.
Or once.
And you could see Master Teague do it, but it is a running back. It's not, CJ Stroud suddenly runs for 1, or Jarrett Wilson takes an end around. It's Ohio State running back. Yep. That's a great one.
And because right now, obviously Travion is getting all of the carries and the other 2 guys have got none of them. So I think maybe there's going to be some incentive, or not incentive, but some movement to get some other guys some touches. And maybe if one of those guys can get the hot hand, maybe they get 16 carries and now boom, they've got 100 yards or something like that. So I think that's worthy of 3 points, Tom. I don't know why you're arguing with this. Okay. All right. That's good. I'm not expecting it to happen, but you shouldn't expect your 3-pointer to happen.
Right. Okay. So last week, 1 player in his first year on Ohio State's defense. So true freshman or transfer or former running back, now playing linebacker. 1 player in his first year on Ohio State's defense had a sack or a tackle for loss. Showed up in the sackle column, as we now call it. With either at least half of a sack or a tackle for loss. One player did it last week. 2 weeks ago, 2 players did it. This week, 5 of them do it. 5 players show up of the players in their first year on the Ohio State defense, a true freshman plus Paula E.A. Naote plus Steel Chambers. 5 of them do it this week. It has happened before, but again, this is the way it happens is they're playing Indiana and Mike Hall gets in at the end of the game and then they hit it that way. That's the way that has happened before. And, even then it's a bunch of guys have half of one in those blowouts.
So 5 new Buckeyes.
5 players in their first year on Ohio State's defense.
Show up. Okay. Yeah. Show up in the tackle for loss column. Can the total of those 5 tackles for loss, however, I need them to be at least 3.5. Is that?
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so
yes, yes, it cannot be 5 guys who each have exactly half of a tackle for loss. Yes. So, okay. So 5 guys, 5 guys totaling at least 3.5.
All right. That's pretty good. I that's stretching the boundaries of possibilities and not possibilities, but certainly probabilities. So that's 5 different newish guys.
Newish.
Finish with each 3.5 tackles for loss. All right, TFL, and a total of 3.5 at least. Okay, I'm with it. I'm agreed to that, Tom. We will virtually shake on it, and we have come to an agreement on our 14 bold predictions. I feel like, I don't know, 11 of 14. I don't think it's outrageous.
My personal guarantee to you, friends, I will do no worse than I did last week. That is my 5th bold prediction, or my 8th bold prediction. That counts for 5 points.
Fortunately, I cannot make that same promise for myself, having gotten a prediction right last week. I hope I get more than a prediction right, but I will not predict that. I will not be so bold as to be bolder than any of my 7 bold predictions this week. Tom, anything else before we call it a day and let people listen to the show?
No, other than the fact that I'm looking right now at my midseason predictions, and I had a lot of very big numbers for Travion Henderson, and I'm starting to get a little nervous on some of those. But we can revisit our midseason bold prediction show at some point in the future. But I'm gonna need him to put up a pretty big game or 2 in the next couple weeks. That would really be helpful.
Yeah, I'm just going through these as well. Oh, my 2-pointer. OSU will beat every Big Ten opponent by at least 14 points. Let's see if that holds out. Can I tease that down to 9 points?
My 3-pointer is still alive. Jesse Murko, keep that ball out of the end zone, buddy. Keep it alive.
My 3-pointer is still alive as well. Jack Sawyer will lead the Buckeyes in sacks the rest of the way out, but he has to pick it up. And as you said, so does Travion Henderson, because the 1,770 yards rushing that I had predicted, not looking so great. But, I've got others that are still in line, and we don't need to go over that right now. We can discuss that later on during the season. So that will do it then for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. If you are watching this on youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop, go ahead and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified, or hit the subscription bell. You'll be notified whenever we drop videos or go live. And if you'd rather listen to this, you can just check out any of your podcast platforms, do a search for Buckeye Weekly, and you'll find us there. So thank you all, and we will talk to you guys later.